Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made the headlines during the week. I'm Victor Matthias. First, the headlines. Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele appears before the ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives investigating the scarcity of the new Naira notes. President Muhammadu Buhari assures Nigerians of resolving the Naira swap in 7 days. 3 persons confirmed dead in Ekweremadu building collapse in Abuja. Plus, over 30 people killed in the city of Peshawar following a bomb blast. Well, that's News Round in view, and we begin with the issue of the Naira note swap, where the Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, appeared before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee investigating the Apex Bank's cash swap policy. At the meeting, Mr. Emefiele says the Apex Bank will continue to accept the old notes even after the deadline, in line with Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act 2007.
After failing to honor 2 previous invitations from the ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives, which is investigating the scarcity of the new notes, Central Bank Governor Mr. Godwin Emefiele finally appears before the lawmakers. His appearance comes after a threat of arrest by the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
First, let me apologize for my inability to be here. It was not intended to undermine your work, undermine the committee, neither is it intended to undermine the hallowed chambers of the House of Representatives.
Mr. Emefiele reacts to the scarcity of the new notes after pausing over-the-counter withdrawals.
I addressed the bankers on Sunday, and I expressed to them my disappointment, and in fact, disappointment of the president. Many of us have unfortunately seen the new Naira, instead of being used for the purpose it is meant, the new Naira is being used in parties, in celebrations. And some of them said, well, maybe it's money from the ATM. I said, no. Money from the ATMs are already broken. They are in leaflets. But what we saw being stamped on people at parties were packets of the new Naira notes, which means that they had breached certain aspects of the guidance notes we gave to them.
The policy is a government policy being carried out by a component of Nigerian government. The institution here also is a component of a government, in fact, an arm of government. So this is, of course, a welcome submission. It is a welcome answer, but unfortunately, at a belated point. Only if you had communicated this to us much earlier, the crisis would not have come up at all. Nigerians would have gone home to sleep without any fear of let or hindrance.
Perhaps the good news to many who are yet to deposit their old notes is Mr. Emefiele agreeing with Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act.
Subject to the content of the CBN Act, Section 20, subsection 3, which says, even after the old currency has lost its legal tender status, that we are mandated to collect those monies. And I stand with the House of Representatives on this. What does that mean? You would have lost its legal tender status, in which case we have moved on, but you have your money that you have not been able to send into the bank. We certainly will give you the opportunity to bring them back into the CBN and redeem it. Either you pay it in your bank account or you want to do exchange, we give you. You will not lose your money. That is the assurance I give to Nigeria.
While members of the committee appear dissatisfied with the explanation of the CBN governor on the scarcity of the new notes, they request for all records on the disbursement of the new notes, to which the Apex Bank agrees. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has asked Nigerians to give him 7 days to resolve the cash crunch that has become a problem across the country. Addressing members of the Progressive Governors Forum who came to the presidential villa to seek solutions to the cash crunch, President Buhari said the currency redesign will give a boost to the economy and provide long-term benefits.
Governors under the Progressives Governors Forum arrived at the presidential villa carrying one major concern, the Naira swap. The latest policy from the Central Bank of Nigeria that is generating reactions from Nigerians. The situation has compelled the governors to seek audience with the president at the council chamber.
Good morning, sir.
After the closed-door meeting, the governors declined to officially address the media, but Governor Abdullahi Ganduje of Kano State affirms that the president promised to weigh in on the situation.
The old currency should go along with the new currency until the old currency dies a natural death, which is possible. He said he will look into that.
Moments after, the senior special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Mr. Garba Shehu, issues a statement declaring that the president has asked for 7 days to resolve the cash crunch. He says, "I will revert to the CBN and the minting company. There will be a decision one way or the other in the remaining 7 days of the 10-day extension." The president also stated that the banks are inefficient and only concerned about themselves. If another year is added, problems associated with selfishness and greed won't go away. Making no bones about plans to clamp down on those sabotaging the successful implementation of the policy after he received assurances from the CBN governor that Nigeria has the capacity to produce its own currency. President Buhari attested to watching television reports about cash shortages and hardship to both local businesses and ordinary Nigerians. Some of the governors here, including Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State, agree that the policy on the Naira redesign is a good one, but also asked the president to impress it on the CBN governor to allow a co-circulation of the old and new notes. Speaking to Hausa correspondents in the State House, Governor El-Rufai re-echoed their position on the matter.
The problem is that the money in circulation is not enough. We propose that the two notes run concurrently so that it does not affect the elections.
The president's 7 days request coincides with the CBN's deadline of February 10 for the currency swap. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Now, while the president appeals to Nigerians on the Naira swap issue, the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, says the bank is not open to extending the deadline for the phasing out of the old Naira notes.
Is CBN open to further extension of deadline? I would say no. I'm sure that people are going to say, well, only last week Tuesday I said no. But I want to say, unfortunately again, this time we will not be looking at extension of deadlines because we are the central bank, the deposit money banks, and other very important stakeholders. We are looking at areas where there is pressure, and we are doing everything possible to address those areas of pressure. And I mean, we've had cases where in some areas, some bank branches had some cash in their vaults because there was no demand for them. We've asked central bank officials, when reported, they moved those monies away from those locations and moved them to areas where there is pressure. So those are some of the logistical challenges that we face, and we're doing everything possible to address it. So I am not going to make any promise to anyone that there will be any further extension of this deadline.
The CBN governor also explains that the Apex Bank has rejigged some of the operations of the cash swap initiative program to help ease the process in some pressure areas.
The CEOs of the banks reported that although calm was beginning to return to their banking halls, there were still some areas of pressure, and everything is being done to divert more resources to such pressure points in order to ease the tension. The meeting further resolved to extend the cash swap initiative nationwide and expand the number of participating agents, as well as formally include some of our microfinance banks in the cash swap initiative. We deployed 30,000 super agents nationwide to assist in a cash swap initiative in the hinterlands, our rural areas, and regions underserved by banks in the country to ensure that the weak and vulnerable ones amongst us can swap or exchange their old notes. The CBN welcomed the participation of the EFCC and the ICPC, who also joined our monitoring teams nationwide, and this has further enhanced compliance at bank branches and agent locations. We are happy that so far, the exercise has achieved a success rate of over 80%, as about 2.7 trillion naira held outside the banking system has been returned. Nigerians in our rural areas, villages, the aged and vulnerable have had the opportunity to swap old notes, leveraging the Agent Naira Swap initiative, as well as CBN senior staff nationwide sensitization team exercise.
And away from the cash swap controversy, the president of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mikel, is apologizing to Nigerians on the failure of legal practitioners to live up to their responsibilities of offering guidance for the advancement of the country. According to him, the experiences faced in the country presently rest on the neglect of legal practitioners towards providing direction and leadership for the people.
I would like to invite...
Gathered here at the auditorium of the Nigerian Bar Association headquarters are members of the bar and the bench, some presidential candidates, and a representative of the Chief of Defense Staff. They're here for the maiden edition of a national dialogue on the state of the nation. The focal point of discussion here is on security, the economy and administration of justice, the challenges and solutions. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mikel, leads the conversation by coming hard on legal practitioners.
I must therefore, as one who is privileged to lead the bar at this time, apologize to Nigerians for the abdication of our role. Today, as members of the bar, we are reputed more for how much fees we charge our clients, as opposed to the discharge of our primary call to offer guidance and or offer ourselves for the advancement of the cause of our country.
The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, joins virtually to deliver a message from the UN on Nigeria's general elections.
Our common objective is to support a process leading to a credible, inclusive and peaceful election. Voters must demand the candidates demonstrate a willingness to create the necessary conditions for this to happen. And the judiciary must see themselves as ministers of the temple of justice, as agents of peace, upholding democratic values that will strengthen Nigeria's role as a regional and a global leader.
The federal government, on its part, assures the gathering that the outcome of the dialogue, when transmitted to them, will sharpen the plans for the election.
That in the course of the discussion, we will be able to bring out a playbook that would provide the guided processes for the new incoming regime. I would say no one government in this country will be able to solve the problems of Nigeria. But as we did on the precedent laid by successive governments.
And what the NBA is doing today in looking at the state of the nation, security, economy, and administration of justice, in readiness for national election, it's no less an ambition similar to the emergence of her as the first female psychiatrist, because they are bringing it all together.
The NBA plans to document key decisions reached here and pass them on to all presidential candidates, hoping to re-establish its leadership position in the society.
Now, as we prepare for the presidential election in 3 weeks' time, the European Union and the International Foundation for Electoral Systems are promising a strong partnership with the Independent National Electoral Commission for a credible election. The European Union promises to deploy 100 observers who will monitor the presidential election across the country this month.
Our program today...
The European Union office in Nigeria is preparing for the 2023 general elections And this news conference is an opportunity for the delegation to give an update on their level of preparations for the exercise.
We will make sure that we can do
The mission plans to deploy 100 observers to monitor the presidential elections.
It's no secret that we live in an age globally when democracy is under attack, when democracy is in retreat. Some people have described it as a democratic recession. And so, as to the number of observers, as I mentioned before, we deployed 40 long-term observers yesterday in 20 teams of 2, and they will be joined by locally recruited short-term observers, and so that we will have 100 observers when it comes to election day itself.
Less than 30 days to the presidential election, the INEC chairman is receiving more visitors, and the latest is from the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, who are visiting to show their support for the Commission's promise to deliver a credible election.
The people of Nigeria, with the leadership of the Commission, have made such important strides in the strengthening and consolidation of democracy and electoral integrity throughout the country. Nigeria's leadership in Africa and indeed around the world is an inspiration to people in consolidated and struggling democracies around the world.
On the part of the Commission, we are given our commitment that the election is going to be free, fair, and credible, and the will of Nigerians will prevail. The largest chunk of materials required for the election, both sensitive and non-sensitive, are already in various locations.
The Commission has implemented 12 of the 14 activities scheduled ahead of the election on February 25.
Away from politics, an ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives is asking questions of the Attorney General as well as Interpol on what it describes as interference in the committee's investigation. The committee, which is investigating the nation's stolen crude from 2014 till date, questions why the whistleblowers would be invited by Interpol on the request of the Ministry of Justice just after the commencement of the investigation of the House.
Let us confine ourselves to...
This House of Representatives ad hoc committee is investigating a whistleblower's allegation of the illegal sale of 48 million barrels of Nigeria's Bonny Light crude in China in 2015, valued at $2.4 billion. The House has invited the International Criminal Police Organization, simply known as Interpol, and this is why.
The Nigerians who are involved are still within the country. Now, 2 of them were the ones who approached us, willing to give details of what transpired in this whole situation. But considering the fact that you were not involved in that initial investigation, I want to first start by asking, how come you wrote letters to these individuals after the committee's investigation had commenced and after they had indicated their desire to give evidence to this committee?
There is a request from a competent ministry. Competent ministry. The number 1 law ministry in Nigeria, asking us to trace somebody that is being missing, that is supposed to appear in court. And they attach court processes and others, and warrant, bench warrant, and other documents.
There is a group called Advocacy for Good Governance and Free Nigeria. That is the so-called civil society organization that wrote to the Attorney General claiming there was this international gang of blackmailers trying to blackmail senior officials of the government. How come the Attorney General responded to allegations by a faceless body? So that means the Attorney General himself does not even ascertain the veracity of any organization.
The committee questions the renewed interest of the Ministry of Justice in the case following the commencement of its investigation.
The person who held surety for them in their bail was informed after your letter, after our letter to the IG complaining about your supposed interference in our investigation, that the case was going to come up again in March. You can see how suddenly the investigation of the committee is now gingering a revisit to some of these issues. And that to us gives us cause for concern.
The committee fears for the safety of the whistleblowers and insists that the Ministry of Justice should not be making direct requests to the National Central Bureau of Interpol, but should go through the police, as Interpol by law is only expected to respond to requests by local law enforcement agencies. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Still in the nation's capital, at least 3 persons have been confirmed dead and 19 others rescued when a 3-story building collapsed in the Ekweremadu area of the Federal Capital Territory.
Heavy machinery wading through the rubble of what is left of a 3-story building meant to be a shopping mall on the 4th Avenue of Ekweremadu Estate in the Federal Capital Territory. The building, which is under construction, collapsed Thursday morning with some of the workers trapped.
This building, we are sitting down there drinking orange. So we saw building coming down. Somebody just say, see building coming down. We just turn to see. We see everything were level. Now we just come back for hospital. They carry us go for that life camp hospital. So this one, it dey inside. But me, I know they inside. You understand? Above 2 of them dey. But when the thing happened and they did down for the down floor, they tried to escape.
A combined team from the FCT Emergency Management Agency, the National Emergency Management Agency, the Federal Road Safety Corps, the Nigeria Police, the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Abuja Metropolitan Management Agency are at the scene of the incident to rescue more persons. Some construction companies with heavy-duty equipment are also part of the rescue efforts.
Whatever led to the collapse is something we are going to handle later. First of all, in that operation like this, is our first engagement is saving lives, and that is what we are doing now. However, at the end of it all, we are going to go and dig into the root of the matter. Who is the engineer in charge of the development? Has he followed his professional practice during his professional ethics insofar as since his development? Is everything done in order or not? These are what our investigation team are going to uncover later.
The rescued victims are receiving treatments at the district hospitals in Wuse, Ekweremadu, Asokoro, and the Federal Medical Center, while efforts are still on to rescue anyone that may still be trapped in the building, which has a basement.
And the trial of former Deputy President of the Senate, Ekweremadu, resumed at the Central Criminal Court, otherwise known as the Old Bailey in London. However, the trial could not go on due to some delay in the filing of some reports before the court.
Well, both supporters and protesters gathered this morning outside of the Old Bailey for the start of what is likely to be a very lengthy, a very complicated trial involving the former Deputy Senate President Ekweremadu, who, alongside his wife Beatrice, their daughter Sonia, and a 4th individual known as Obinna Obeta, have been accused of conspiracy to arrange the travel of another person with a view to exploitation under UK legislation on modern slavery. The senator appeared in court wearing a grey tracksuit and spoke only once to confirm his name. He was sitting alongside his wife Beatrice, who has been granted bail alongside Sonia. We didn't see their 25-year-old daughter Sonia in court. In fact, we are still waiting to see whether or not she is fit to stand trial. Let's cast our minds back, shall we, to when this case first caught the public attention. That was when, in June 2022, the senator was arrested by British police at Heathrow Airport. This was because a 21-year-old man who cannot be named for legal reasons showed up at a police station in Staines in Surrey, alleging that he was the victim of a kidney harvesting plot. He alleges that he was brought into the United Kingdom from Lagos to donate his kidney, but he refused to do so after conducting a series of tests at the Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead. On this refusal, he alleges that when he returned to the Ekweremadu household, he was treated like a slave. Of course, we know that the Ekweremadus were then later arrested. Now, just before the end of the year, a bail plea was rejected by the judge over concerns that Senator Ekweremadu was a flight risk. There are going to be plenty of questions about whether or not this case should have gone this far. Should the former Deputy Senate President been granted some sort of diplomatic immunity? But as for today's matter, the court was adjourned soon after convening, and we await further updates, which is likely to be the selection of a jury. Juliana Olayinka reporting for Channels Television News in London.
Our news round ends in Pakistan, where at least 32 people have been killed and 150 more injured after a blast at a mosque in the city of Peshawar. And that's News Round this week. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.